right, gang. Welcome to Money Talks. It's been a minute. I'm your host, Bill Barheit, founder and CEO at Abra. As always, we have a lot to talk about today, so let's get to it. Most of what's happening in our world this week is either regulation, interest rates, money supply, or some combination of the two. We'll talk about bond markets. We'll talk about the SEC. We'll talk about European Parliament. Lots going on. All right, so start off with the markets, right? So we obviously had a short-term top form on Bitcoin and Ethereum. We'll get to the charts here and take a look at what's going on. But it looks like we are back in the consolidation zone. Bring up the chart. Here we go. So you can see here, let's see. So Bitcoin is back to 28,150. Ethereum is back down to 19,100. Both in the previous short-term consolidation zones that they were in last week. So we can see if we go back to April 14th, which was a week ago. Let's see right there. Well, actually, last Friday, Bitcoin was actually reconsolidating after this move higher, and it's clearly pulled back. We expected a pullback to 29,000. We did do a show last week, but clearly if I had, I would have said I expected a pullback to 29,000 after this run up because it was a quick one. Actually on lower volume, which we don't like to see. We like to see run ups on higher volume like we did in mid-March, right? So you see over here, March 12th through the 17th, significant move higher on Binance for Bitcoin. That is super bullish. Obviously, any move higher is bullish, but when the volume doesn't cooperate, you can see here at the bottom of my screen that, let me see if I can zoom in a little. You can see here at the bottom of my screen that the volume has come down significantly on the trading side versus mid-March. That is not necessarily bullish or bearish, but it tells us that the market may be lacking conviction in the latest movement. The other thing to keep in mind is the amount of Bitcoin being held by long-term holders is going up significantly. And what that should tell you is that the amount of Bitcoin available for trading is dwindling. And that's actually super bullish long-term. Now, Ethereum had its upgrade to Shanghai, which unlocks staking. Now, many people considered this to be bearish for Ethereum. I actually thought the opposite was true because many people who would be afraid to stake because they couldn't get their Ethereum out will now be staking Ethereum. And the numbers are playing this out. If you look at the number of people who have withdrawn their Ethereum versus the number of people depositing Ethereum into staking nodes now, the number of people depositing into staking nodes seems to be surpassing the number who are withdrawing. And that is exactly what I expected to happen. Long term, that is very bullish for Ethereum. I expect Ethereum staking volumes to become commensurate with other staking-based protocols. Ethereum staking volumes were lower simply because Ethereum was locked up. Or I should say staked Ethereum was locked up. We'll talk about Abra and staking in a few minutes. Okay, so what do I expect from here? Well, my reading of the tea leaves is one, I have no idea. And two, if I was a betting man, I would bet that we may consolidate here for a few days going into May, get a small leg lower, and then head towards new highs, which for Ethereum would probably push us towards 2,500, and for Bitcoin towards 33,000. I do see more money printing, more liquidity in the system coming from the Fed. If you've been paying attention to what's been going on in the banking front, the Fed has basically undone the vast majority of the quantitative tightening by making short-term credit available to the banking system. They call them collateralized loans, but effectively it's money that they printed that they're using as collateral. So it's part of the game. So that means in English that the volume of money in the system is going to be going up significantly in the short term. Now that may be exacerbated by, partially offset by a lack of lending given the credit tightening going on. but I expect that to be very short-lived, and the markets are forward-looking. And I think the markets right now are looking towards significant loosening of the monetary system based upon the risks in the banking sector and the bond markets right now. Bond yields are clearly moving down. The dollar is structurally weakening. You can see here, we're back into this channel, right? So we were consolidating a little bit here in early April, and it looks like we're structurally set up to continue this downward channel here. This is the most important chart to me, right? As this dollar index starts to make new lows, I expect a significant move up in Bitcoin and tech stocks. We'll see. They won't be correlated day to day. It's more of a macro correlation over time, but that's what I expect to happen. All right. So as I said earlier, the SEC is all over the news. The regulators are all over the news this week. Here, I'm going to stop this for a second, just give you my commentary. So the US SEC Chair Gensler would not actually say, when pressed by Congress, whether Ethereum is a security or a commodity. The CFTC, the sister organization to the SEC that actually oversees commodities regulations in the United States, has clearly stated that Bitcoin and Ethereum and many others are commodities. The head of the SEC seems to publicly state the opposite on a regular basis, which means that it's very difficult for companies trying to operate legally in the United States to know what to do when our own regulators are giving us conflicting guidance as to what is a commodity and what is a security. So I don't know how we're supposed to react to that, but I think this is a lot more politics than it is genuine disagreement. And that's very unfortunate, because I actually know some folks at the SEC. I know some folks at the CFTC. Some I've gotten to know because I didn't necessarily want to, but, you know, obviously we've had our past. But I never had a problem with the people that I've met. They all seem very intelligent. They're trying to do a job. They're trying to protect investors. I get all that. But what I don't get is why you can't just come out with very explicit guidance to say, here is where 1930s, 1940s regulations apply to crypto. Here is how you should make those rules apply to your business. And here's where we just don't know. And here's where you get a sandbox to play, because your rules, a reasonable application of the rules probably doesn't apply to X, Y, or Z. We get nothing like that, nothing, right? And it's very disconcerting. So I'm going to show you here, bring this up again. Here's a video clip of, it's asking me to restart my audio sharing, which I'm not going to do. So I don't know if that's going to work. So I'm going to try this, and I apologize if the audio is poor, but we're going to do it anyway. Okay, so here is Congress talking to SEC Chairman Gensler about Ethereum being a commodity.
Okay, so do you recognize, how would you categorize that?
Look, I think that the general sweep of what Congress did, not just in the 30s, but as amended.
I'm asking you, sitting in your chair now, to make an assessment under the laws as exist. Is Ether a commodity or a security?
Without speaking to anyone.
I know you repeatedly said you're not going to speak to one, except you've spoken to one, Bitcoin. So I'm asking you to speak to a second one, the second largest market cap here.
In speaking to the tokens, there's 10 to 12,000. If there's a group of entrepreneurs,
I'm asking about one.
The public is anticipating a profit based on the.
I'm asking a specific question, Chair Gensler. I said this in private. This should be no shock to you. I'm asking this question. Is Ether a commodity or a security?
And again, it depends on the facts and the law. And if there's a group of
I'm asking about the facts and the law sitting in your seats and the judgment you are making.
Okay, wow. So stop this. They go back and forth, back and forth. I don't know why explicitly they just won't come out and say that Ether is a commodity today. Clearly, they have staff that look at this. They have come out in other lawsuits in the past couple of weeks. They listed very explicit crypto assets that they deemed to be securities in a lawsuit that they filed against a company called Bittrex that recently announced that they were leaving the United States as a result of this kind of heavy-handed approach to regulation and the lack of clarity, they've decided to double down on their non-US businesses. But my point is that the SEC has come out and explicitly said in their complaint against this company, Bittrex, that 3 or 4 of these crypto assets they were listing, probably a couple of them you've never heard of, were securities. And I don't think they are, but it's not my judgment, right? So it's just my opinion. Excuse me, just my opinion. So the point is that if they would actually say, right, we think EOS, which I think was named in their suit, is a security, and here are the reasons why. That's reasonable. You may not agree, but you know where our regulator stands. Now, as an American taxpayer, I think it's very reasonable to know where our regulator stands on whether an asset is a security, especially if that regulator is required to oversee the securities industry. So I don't get that. It's politics to me, and I find it hard to believe that the staff of the SEC completely agrees with this perspective. And I hope it changes. I don't know, but it may require regime change within the current administration that seems to be supporting a lot of this nonsense. Anyway, kudos to the Republican-led House Finance Committee for pushing to get to the bottom of why there is so much politics in the oversight of the crypto industry, and I hope it leads to change. Now, speaking of politics and crypto and regulations, lawmakers in the European Union on Thursday voted in favor of a new crypto licensing regime. They call it Markets in Crypto. It's also known as MiCA, M-I-C-A, making the EU the first major jurisdiction in the entire world to introduce a comprehensive crypto law. And the parliament also voted in favor of a separate law. It's known as the Transfer of Funds Regulation. It basically requires crypto operators to identify their customers in a bid to halt money laundering. The votes will allow basically the EU to have very clear oversight of wallets and exchanges who seek to operate across the bloc of 27 EU nations. And stablecoin issuers will also be required to maintain sufficient reserves. So look, you may not agree with every aspect of this new law. I'm sure I don't, but they have clarity now. If you're operating in the EU and you're targeting local citizens with your marketing of your crypto services in the EU, it sounds like starting later this year or into next year, you're going to need this MiCA license, which again, whether you agree with it or not, they have clarity. And that's all we've asked for here is clarity, okay? Anyway, a couple of other interesting items in the news, and then I want to talk about Abra for a minute. Credit agency giant TransUnion is going to deliver credit scores for crypto lending. So TransUnion, for those of you outside the US, is one of the largest credit agencies in the US. So when you apply for a credit card or instant credit at checkout, and you get your credit report delivered or credit score, TransUnion is one of those companies in the background that's providing that credit score or information to the credit provider. So TransUnion will provide off-chain credit scores for blockchain-based loan applications in a way that they claim maintains the privacy of consumers. So they say they're going to deliver credit scores for DeFi lenders, and this is going to be starting even next week. They'll provide these traditional off-chain credit scores for individuals when they apply for loans on these blockchain-based protocols without compromising applicants' privacy, according to this press release. I haven't dug in detail as to how they plan to do that, but it's super interesting. They're working with Spring Labs and DeFi Identity and Quadrata, all companies we know at Abra. Quadratus confirmed that the service is going to be accessible starting next week. So as Abra moves more and more in the direction of DeFi, which is something we'll be talking about on Money Talks, most likely next week. I'm looking at the calendar here. Next week is April 28th, and I think that's the day we're going to do a very interesting episode of Money Talks and show you some really cool new stuff that many of you have been waiting for. But anyway, I think that Abra is going to be in a position to take advantage of this. And I think this is a smart move for the DeFi companies that are or protocol companies that are embracing this credit model, because it will enable different types of lending, including under collateralized and over collateralized at the same time. You could even see this getting into more traditional assets like mortgages over time, which is a little bit problematic since mortgages don't sit on the blockchain. But anyway, it is an interesting announcement, and we'll see how this unfolds over time. All right, good stuff. So, all right, let's get back to Abra. So, a couple of things I want to talk about. So, I mentioned the Shanghai upgrade for Ethereum. The implication for all of you is that Abra is going to be unlocking your staked ETH. Now, when I say Abra, what I mean by that is when you stake Ethereum in Abra Boost, you're actually staking that Ethereum on a node through an Ethereum node through a company that Abra works with that manages those nodes. So, one ETH staked, one ETH going directly to a node at a staking partner for Abra. Those staking partners are unstaking that Ethereum in the coming days and weeks, and we expect to be able to make that available to you in the mid-May timeframe. So let's say three-ish weeks from now, you will be able to get your Ethereum out of Abra. That's in line with what most other companies are doing, because it takes, in some cases, a few weeks to get the unstaked Ethereum out anyway. And in our case, we expect to make it available almost immediately in 3 weeks once it's available. So hopefully that math makes sense to all of you. So those of you reaching out to support to ask when your staked Ethereum is going to be available for withdrawal, you don't need to ask anymore. And by the way, you're totally fine to continue to earn your rewards on Boost and leave your staked Ethereum as is where it is. You don't need to take any action whatsoever. If you do want access to your staked Ethereum, you'll be able to process your withdrawal then when we make it available. So super exciting there. As I mentioned, I believe next Friday, we're going to be doing, you guys going to confirm? I got my guys in the background here. Yeah. So I think next Friday, we're going to be doing a really interesting episode of Money Talks. We're going to demo some new stuff for you. Probably I'll give a little bit of away. We're looking at some stuff, maybe in the DeFi space, maybe in the NFT space, maybe related to how C-Perks might fit in to all of this. So you're definitely going to want to tune in for Money Talks next week. It's going to be a much longer show than this. This is really just a brief update. I've been traveling a ton the last few weeks. I'm super busy with these product launches, dealing with my exec team and a bunch of other stuff. So we should be back in the full swing of Money Talks in the next few weeks. And yeah, I'm excited to get back to the grind. Anyway, so I actually didn't see myself on the camera. I just realized that the camera picture is totally washed out this morning. So you're getting a white version of Bill, like a bright white. So I apologize for that. Anyway, so I'm actually a little bit tired. I was up super late working. I'm actually using ChatGPT a ton in my work now. I don't know how many of you, and our company is too, it's really incredible. I mean, have any of you played with this thing? ChatGPT, this new AI tool, I mean, we use it to basically draft memos, to draft, emails, to draft legal docs, and then we'll basically hand them off to marketing or legal or engineering. And it just saves us a ton of time. So if you're not integrating this stuff into your business or daily life, I highly recommend it. And I know some folks in our engineering team, for example, are starting to use some of these tools to do code generation, which makes the development process and development cycle much faster. So anyway, so hopefully we'll be able to talk some more about AI and where it fits in the crypto space. It's something I'm really excited about. I got to attend Peter Diamandis's Abundance 360 a few weeks ago, and half of the event was about AI, and it was super motivating. I learned a ton. I did take classes in AI many moons ago, decades actually, and it's awesome to see how the computational capabilities of the planet have evolved to enable all the things that we talked about back when I was a kid. So So it's all happening. It's all coming now. And I think that as it relates to financial markets, it's going to enable real-time decision-making. It's going to enable better decision-making, more informed. You're going to see real-time data start to integrate with things like ChatGPT, so that it can make more intelligent decisions for you or recommendations for you. I'm really excited about it. A lot of people are worried about this kind of dystopian future. I'm not. I actually see this as tools. Even when we reach this kind of point where it feels like these tools are smarter than we are, it still doesn't scare me. These things have an off switch. They're machines. And like I said, I don't buy into the dystopian future that some of my brethren have been saying. We need to slow this down. And it's first of all, it's not going to happen because, if you look at the competition from China and Eastern Europe and other parts of Southeast Asia and Japan, they're moving full steam ahead on this stuff. And we need the US to lead, and we need Western Europe to play a big role in this. And we need the competition on the planet for this to basically help bring more people into the middle class of the planet. I think Africa is going to play a huge role when it comes to the next generation of information technology. And I think a lot of it is going to be AI based. You're going to be hearing this term prompt engineer over the coming weeks. What is a prompt engineer? A prompt engineer is somebody who basically understands how these AI systems work insofar that they can craft questions for ChatGPT and other systems, Midjourney, whatever, that actually make the results as useful as possible to the entity that needs the answer. So more to say on AI in the coming weeks. Really excited about it. We're using it at Abra. I know many of our partners and even competitors I've spoken to, we all talk, they're using AI tools in their business now as well. And I'm sure all over Wall Street, people are starting to look at this thing. I saw an announcement from Bloomberg where they're actually porting a lot of their data into a forked AI tool that they created for real-time decisioning that they're planning to make available through to their Bloomberg terminal subscribers. So there you go, right? You're going to see this all over the place on Wall Street, financial services, engineering companies, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. All right. So that's AI. I was watching the Warriors last night. I know we've got a lot of folks. I see that we always have a lot of folks from the Philippines here. I don't know why historically, but we do. And a lot of folks I see from Bangladesh and from India and from the UK. And I know that the NBA is huge all over the world. I'm a huge fan. My two kind of non-work sports passions are basketball and Formula One. Anyway, my Warriors finally won a game last night. And so that's got me a little happier this morning. It was a miserable first couple of games, and then they ridiculously suspended Draymond. I mean, I don't know if you saw this play. I don't even want to talk about it. It was so infuriating what happened when he got suspended. But anyway, you can just Google Draymond Green and you'll see what happened. It was ridiculous. But anyway, so it's going to be an interesting weekend to see what happens there. And look, I don't know what's going to happen in the next few weeks with a lot of these securities issues. I think the House Services and Financial Services Committee keeping them in check makes a lot of sense. Hopefully that will pay dividends to the entire industry in the coming months. I don't know. We'll obviously report to you as we see things unfold in real time and let you know what's going on. All right, so that's a quick update. Next week is a big one. You do want to be here for Money Talks next week. Get your Abra app updated. Go to the App Store, download the current version. We'll probably have a new release in early May relative to what we're going to show you next week. But you might want to start telling your friends now. Now is a good time to be signing up for Abra. All right, with that, I'm going to let you have your time back. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week here on Money Talks. Take care, everyone.